Org tree. I'd love to know the backstory. There's always a reason,
Mm.
something that happened, something that you noticed, something that bothered you, something you experienced that causes people, I think, most of the time to get involved in where they end up. And particularly when it's in a space like this, Andy, where you want to impact people, you want to help people, you want to create change. There's normally a driving reason behind that. What was yours? How did you end up doing what you're doing?
Oh, that how deep do you want to go?
Yeah, as
Yeah,
deep as you
so
want.
as deep as I want. Um, so yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think there's a great Jimmy Carr video, if anybody knows the comedian online, who sometimes goes very much over the line. But he said, it's like, show me a trust fund kid, and I'll show you somebody that's never had a worry or a concern in their life and is the most boring individual in the room. Show, would probably got a drug habit, but show me somebody that's, faced challenges in life and figured out how to overcome them.
Mm.
And I'll show you somebody, of interest. And, I'm trying to build myself up. Right? When I was a kid, I had let's say trust issues, and it was kind of hard. So your relationship to trust is established very young in life. So in my later years, I won't say I've had a calling. I won't say that there was a deliberate path that was going on here. It took me years to figure out what I was doing. But what I wanted was trust. What I wanted was respect. What I wanted was to be seen and heard. And I didn't get that. And then in later life, my purpose is to have powerful people use their power to help those with none, because that's the experience I wanted for myself.
Mm.
And when you combine that with, I didn't choose to go into health and safety. A big boss at work said, I want you to go into health and safety, right? And every fiber of my body said, I don't understand what those guys do. I can't see how they add value. They turn up smart after the event. They give us advice after things have gone wrong. Where are you in helping me before we got here? You're not there, right? So everything in me said, no, don't do it. But the big boss had asked, and I said, oh man, thanks for thinking of me. That's brilliant, right? But I couldn't be that safety guy. So I showed up and I said, I want to help you. I've got some knowledge. How can I help you do your job and feel better? Because that's what I wanted from the people round about me. And as my career has progressed, I've understood, where I come from in the past, because you don't get that until you're in your 30s or 40s, right?
Mm.
Or maybe some people figure it out earlier than I did. I'm a bit slow. But, when I got to a position of, very proud to say, significance in quite a few different organizations, I figured out how to get people to help other people where they were scared to ask, right? They don't have what they need, and it's not okay to ask. So how can I create the conditions when it's okay for you to ask? So that's org tree. If you When I showed up in organizations, they'd show me an org chart,
Mm.
and I see people in boxes and silos, and I'm like, that doesn't reflect how we work. But if I think about an org tree, a tree, every single part of that tree figures out how to help every other part in bearing fruit. And if you think about the roots, if the roots are your values, right? And we can talk about that later on if you want. If you describe another individual as selfish and unhelpful and arrogant and domineering, or whatever those words are, that's your lived values, and that connects that individual and many others to the whole tree. So how on earth can you bear fruit out of that relationship? If, on the other hand, the roots are fed with openness and support and helpfulness, trust, and that's what connects your organization, it's a whole different ballgame, right? So I feed the roots of the relationship by understanding where those words come from and why, and then figure out how to use a better way to connect the relationships to people. And there you go. I hope that explains in some way where I come from
Yeah.
and why.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We're always trying to bring you information that's going to make your life as a builder much easier. So give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. I'm just thinking along the lines that, like, the majority of listeners to this podcast are residential builders in the construction industry. Many of them they've just got small teams, and I want your thoughts on how important it is to put the time and the effort into not only thinking about this, even if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 people on your team. How important is it to put effort into understanding how important this is and learning the skills to be able to communicate effectively the importance of everybody supporting each other? And there's a Australian rules football coach. His name's Lee Matthews. He's not a coach anymore. He's very, very successful player, very, very successful coach. He's in the media now. And I've got a DVD that he created back in 2004 or something. It's still very relevant today, but he just talks about the importance of respect in a team, because he pulled a great team together. And he would often say, respect is mandatory, like is optional. And I just thought, how important is it for that small business owner who thinks that, we all get on and we all talk to each other and all of that sort of stuff? There's so much value, I believe, in if the leader puts the effort into starting to talk about the things you're talking about. How can we contribute to a better team environment and people feeling like they're really connected and part of something important, and they really feel safe and excited about turning up to work, rather than it's a means to an end. I've got to do my 8 hours to get my paycheck. The guys are okay, but there's so much other potential, I think, if the leader gets into what you're talking about and then starts to have the balls to regularly have conversations in this space. It's got to be valuable even for the small business, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm sitting here with a smile on my face. Just before I left Bahrain, a dear friend of mine runs a cake shop with 10 people in it, and she looked at me. I talk about this $12 billion investment in Africa with 30,000 people in construction, and the whole construction industry was 30,000 people, and we were on top of that. So you can imagine the folks that were showing up, came off a fishing boat and they've now got a trowel in their hand. And I worked at a senior level at one of the world's most admired companies. I've been continents and countries, and she's looking at me going, my team's dysfunctional, but you're too big for that. It's like, really? Everybody's the same.
Yeah.
Right? I want my parents to be proud of me. I want my kids to be successful and happy. To be honest, I'd take happy, right? I want somebody to say thank you for a job well done, and if I'm stuck, I want some help. And everybody's like that, right? No matter what your visage or image you put up, everybody's like that. So I went down and sat with these cake shop folks, and everybody, it was dysfunctional. I'm not talking about the leadership angle on that, because she created a bit of an issue herself, because if you didn't get something right, you kind of get shouted at. But what I did with that team was fundamentally respect and understand that everybody's coming to add value. And if you get a hard time for a mistake, then somebody's going to cover up the mistake. And then you're not going to get the opportunity to learn. I did it in two ways, and I started with what I call social purpose. So, what's your benefit to society? And I look at their Instagram page, and there's some beautiful cakes there. These things are works of art. I mean, you're talking top level Master Chef stuff here. And they're going, ta-da, look, cake. I'm like, yeah, everybody's cakes, with respect, kind of look like that. What do you do? And your small builder who's helping somebody build a conservatory. You put a picture of a conservatory up, right? So I built an extension for them. You put a picture of an extension. There's no emotional connection for anybody looking at the photograph. But you listen to the story of the people whose lives you've changed. Man, I saved up for 10 years because I always wanted a conservatory, because I remember sitting with my grandma and my granddad sitting in their conservatory, and I think of them when I'm sitting here. It's a different emotion, right? So I said, talk to your customers, right? When they come in, what's this cake for? Oh, it's my son's birthday. Why is this important to you, right? When you get that cake home, it's no longer the cake. It's the family and friends that come round to celebrate that, and we do that round the cake, right? So I get photographs of people enjoying who you are and what it is that you do, right? And you'll get a different feeling about that. And stop saying my purpose is more important than yours in the company because I do the decoration, but I can't do the decoration if your cake flops, right? Idiot. No. Why did that happen? Right? So we started understanding that we all need each other. And if a mistake happens, why? Well, you know what? Everybody knows it takes me 2 hours to do this, but I only got an hour and a half, so I had to rush. Well, how can we give you the extra half hour, right? Where does that come from? Well, the sales guy just needs to tell me a bit sooner, or this, that. So we started understanding what it is that we needed from each other. And then when you start understanding what you need for each other, you see the value in the other person. And when you see the value in the other person, you kind of go, oh, God, I see it from your perspective now. Okay. Damn, I didn't know that. Well, you didn't ask me, right? You just assumed and then give me a hard time when I fail. So, when I talk to people, the real purpose of the organization is to deliver a product or a service or whatever the heck it is. And usually the owner of a building company will be, trying to have a great relationship with the client because they want something from them, right? But it's a benefit thing. But then you look back at your team and you're like, well, that relationship's not so important because they get paid, right? So no, that's your engine. These are the people that actually deliver. If you set them up for success, just ask them, have you got everything that you need? If you don't have what you need, it's on me. If somebody asks you for a swimming pool and a Ferrari, it's like, well, that's not fair. Like, yeah, that's not fair. So what do you need? How do we support each other to get this done? And the small ideas that come out of, well, it'd be better if I was thinking about this. Oh, it's a good idea. You bring meaning to the other individual at their work because they go home at dinner time and say, hey, guess what your mum did today? Guess what your dad did today, right? If it wasn't for me, that company, they want to be the hero, right? They want to be the hero. So let them talk. Listen to what it is they have to say. And then as a team sit around and say, well, is this a good idea? How do we make that work, right? How does this make us better, stronger? Great. And then you encourage ideas. The more you do that, right, you pay deposits into the trust bank. The more you do that, more people are willing to talk to you. So, I started off in safety. I went to the Middle East and the CFO phoned me up because he was going to fire me because I was costing too much money because people were getting new equipment and we're upskilling, and I was flying people into meetings and things like that to support project work. And the CFO said I was going to fire you. And I've counted up all the numbers. And when at the end of that project, when I'm going to the CEO to tell him that you're a waste of time, trouble, effort, and money, because that was his perspective of what I did for a living, safety guys, he said, turns out we're 25% more profitable. Sit down. I want you to tell me how we did that. Right? So I did it by connect. I didn't have a safety focus. I had a how can we help each other out focus, because we just end up making better decisions when we stop looking at it from, well, I think it should be done like this. and start looking at it from how can we do the best thing together that gives the client the best thing ever. And then they come back to us and say, that was great. Can you do me again? By the way, all of these other guys that are transactional and aggressive and horrible, you're not like that. Can I give you more business? So, did I answer your question?
I can't remember what the question was.
No, neither can
I. One of the case studies on your website talks about losing $25 million in an organisation 2 years running, and then they delivered nearly a $400,000 profit after some work's done. And a bunch of things you were just saying there is, I just want to try and get any ideas that you've got to try and get in the head of somebody listening to this who's got a small residential building company about how important it is for them to change their perspective about their team. Like you said, they don't really need it. They're being paid. I can just tell them what to do. They're being paid. But like how much value is being left on the table because people aren't being appreciated and supported and taught how to communicate as a team and help each other and so forth. What do we have to do to help people to understand that it's probably one of the areas of the business that if you put some effort in, it would increase profitability significantly because there's no additional cost to this. There's no additional cost to have these conversations. People will be yelling at me now going, yeah, but that would take time and I've got to bang nails into wood and be productive to earn money. But like you can spend an hour a week, or 2 half-hour sessions banging nails into wood or building something or doing admin tasks, or you could spend 2 half-hour sessions a week, same amount of time, speaking to your team and listening to your team and finding out about what their concerns are, what their thoughts are, asking them to contribute, recognizing their efforts and their imagination and their ideas. And I just feel that over time, if you did that, the profitability would be significantly more than if you spent that hour a week banging nails into wood or doing administration tasks. What are your thoughts?
It's interesting because you say, we got to bang nails in the wall. It takes time to have these conversations. Well, that's your perspective, right? That's your perspective because you haven't done it because you don't see the value in doing it.
Yeah.
So that, how on earth would you be able to tell me what the value is on something that you've never tried before? So I do find that if it's new to you, you can't jump in with the big wide open questions. Like I said earlier on, I taught a company how to ask a question, which was, if you don't have what you need to do your job, that's on me. Tell me what you need. Folk are like, no, not ready for that. So you have to start somewhere. You have to start a little bit smaller with that and build your way up. And I help people do that organizationally, systemically. But, regard the case study that you mentioned started with, and I love what you said earlier on. I don't have to like you, but respect is important, right? But it has to be mutual respect. So at that company, I went round all of their building sites, and I listened. I listened to what people were saying. I listened to the challenges they have, and I'll come back to what I heard when I revealed to the leaders of this business what was going on. So I sat down, we talk about core values and things like that. And the posters and slogans that, marketing thought was a good idea to put on the wall. Or, you sat down at the dinner table and said, what do you want? We're going to be the best builder in Australia. And, we've got dignity, respect, trust, or whatever 4 words you want to throw at a piece of paper because you're trying to look good, right? But you don't live them. So I sat down with this company and I said, if you were to describe this company as a personality, as a person, just give me single words and I'll write them down. And I got transactional, aggressive, cost cutting, and all these kind of heavy, financially, transactionally uncomfortable words, right? Somebody at the top of the table went, nah, that's not us. We've got a great respect for engineering and stuff like that. And literally, the whole of the boardroom turned around and looked at this guy, and somebody said, nah, and we carried on with these nasty words. And I said, okay, thanks for that. What are your core values? And they went, oh, somebody opened their laptop to look them up. I said, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking up the core values. You can't look up core values. I said, these words are your core values. They went, no. I said, I asked you to describe your behavior. I'd ask you to describe your company as a person, right? As a way you deal with things. Do your clients see you like this? And they went, yeah, maybe. I said, let me tell you a story. I said, I was down talking to a guy. They're installing an HVAC system in a block of flats, right? And I spoke to this guy, what's it like to be you here, kind of thing. And he was like, well, tell you what, when you go back to the board, tell them to pay my expenses, because I saw a problem that I had, right? I didn't have the tool because the company wouldn't give me it. So I went to the DIY store. I bought a tool. I came back. I fixed the job, right? Very proud of what it is that I've done. I put my expense claim in, and it came back with, who authorized this? Why did you not follow the procedure? You haven't filled in the right form. Claim rejected. He said, I bloody tried to help you, right? Come on. So back at the board, I said, do your employees see you like this? And they went, oh, no. I said, so imagine that guy who you've been disrespectful to when he's gone out of his own way to help you out. And then he looks around and he sees a problem with somebody else's job. And he's like, do you know what? That's not on me, mate. Stuff you. Right? So how much willingness have you lost of somebody that's just trying to get the job done because you guys up here have designed a business to be transactional, contractual, and aggressive? Your clients see you like that. Your employees see you like that. And it's you sitting around this table. HR's designed an expense system that is perfectly fits with these words. Your contracts with clients perfectly fit with those words, because you get a contract and then you try and work out how to get more money off them. They don't like you because you're disrespectful. So sitting down and listening to those stories of how people try and overcome challenges and how they feel when they're trying to help and somebody is disrespectful. It's like, I don't care about your value. You bought that piece of equipment, it costs £100. I've just saved £100 by making you pay for it. We're good, right? No. So that's why they were losing 20 million a year. And, they put a new CEO in place who called me and said, right, I've got a great strategy. I know this business, I know the industry, but you know people. And culture doesn't eat strategy for breakfast. You need them both to work together. It's just that stories write the menu. So when you soak that up and you actually listen to people, you actually try and see how they're trying to add value to your company. It doesn't have to be a touchy-feely kind of, let's do a training course in emotional intelligence. You just have to talk to guys and say, can you see a better way than what's in front of us just now? Right? Have you been set up for success or not? Because if you haven't, I can adapt. But if I don't know, I can't adapt. I can't make it better for you. So, that translates. I've since that CFO conversation when he said 25% more profit, I've sat and gone round and figured out how far the relationships are apart is the ROI on how much you get back when you actually invest in that. And it's 15, it's 25%, whatever your salary budget, it depends, lots of people, materials are expensive, right? But generally speaking, whatever your salary budget is, I can give you 25% back in fixing how you just talk to each other. So that 1 hour where you have a conversation where somebody feels supported and valued, build off that. 25% of your wage bill, that has to be worth an hour.
Yeah. when you were speaking there, I was also thinking about how important it is, well, first for the leadership to be very, very clear on what the business's purpose is. And something that I talk to our builders all the time about is that your product isn't the extension or the renovation or anything. That's the commodity. The product is how you make your clients feel. It's the quality of your client's experience is your product. And if that is a constant conversation and a focus with the team, they understand it, but they can also contribute to it. And what that made me think of was a story I heard about what's the big retailer in America, starts with W? Walmart. And I was reading about the policy that it's not the purpose of the business, but they had a policy. They made a policy that if you are within X amount of feet, it'd be in America, not meters, X amount of feet of a customer, you must engage them, ask them what they're there for, and help and show them what they need. So what that did was created a subculture of the more senior people in the team teaching the new people where to stand so they could see people coming towards them and what exit routes they were to get away from the client. So you never, ever got within the specified X amount of feet of a client to have to help them. And so there was this subculture going around of how we can get away from our clients, how we can get away from our customers, because the focus was you must do this, versus if you know if a builder is telling people how to behave or how we must respect and all of that sort of stuff, versus saying our product is this, how we make our clients feel. Let's have a conversation every week about some really bizarre ideas, how we can blow our clients' socks off, like just surprise the crap out of them so they can't stop thinking about it and can't stop talking about it. It's got nothing to do with building. It's got everything to do with an experience. What if that was the culture, the focus of the conversations? How important is that for a leader to know what it is and invest time and effort into having regular conversations and getting input about it from the team?
Yeah. So there's a ton, and I'm pleased you said that word experience, right? There's a ton of research gone into employee experience, right? And I'd spoke with an HR guy saying, I want to help with employee experience, customer experience, because I've got an internal customer, right? They say, oh, we've been thinking about gym membership. No, it's not an employee experience. That's a kind of employee benefit. You get a discounted gym membership. I mean, it's not that. But, you're so right. And it doesn't matter the size of your business at all, because we're human beings. Purpose and meaning and contribution mean something, right? Deeply. So how can I contribute to the very purpose of this organization? Because that's belonging, right? That's belonging. I helped deliver that experience. The opposite side of that, if you think about like American healthcare, you look at the burnout rate, the leave rate, the people that don't want to be there anymore, it's like 50-60% of the entire population of the healthcare system don't want to be there. Why? So if your purpose is to care for health, and you spend years at university or college or whatever it is, training courses, you come in and you practice and you practice and you practice, your purpose is to care for health. And then the big boss says, do me a favor, that pregnant lady, tell her she needs a cesarean, because that's really expensive and we make more profit out of that. If it's a natural birth, I mean, who cares about two midwives in a room, right? That's a pile of rubbish. I want all of this equipment in there so we can make more money. So there's a huge disconnect between my ethics and the purpose that I set for myself to care for her, and the business purpose, which is, whatever, just how does that make money, right? Boeing, how does that add shareholder value? Oh, well, my purpose and problem is not important. I have to help you make more money. Planes fell out the sky. So if you're absolutely right, it's what benefit does our client get? What's the experience that our client gets from us? And just that, like you said, that small conversation. What if you realize that a client that feels good about you and what it is that you do and how it is that you did it, it's everything, right? So think about everybody in your company. If you're a small company, you don't have HR and finance or whatever it is, but think about how helpful you feel everybody around you is and how that affects the relationship. So if you have a clearly defined purpose that everybody goes, oh yeah, I can contribute to that, then you see fellow contributors and your relationships change. And when your relationships change, you start sharing information. And when you start sharing information, you just make better decisions. So it's empowering. It feels great when you're in a company and you're doing your job and somebody says the customer's going to be so happy with that. Look at the way that you did that. That's spot on. Thanks very much. Walk away. Pride, right? I know exactly what you want. You want me to, do the pointing. Well, I've spent time. That's a really weird angle in this vaulted ceiling, but I've got it perfect and it spent me ages. And you walk in and say, how you getting on today? Spent ages doing that. I think it looks great. Man, that looks fantastic. Client's going to be delighted. Make sure you point that out to them, right? It's just, it costs nothing to say thank you very much for your contribution because connect to purpose, right? Thank you very much for doing that. Our core values are client satisfaction, client joy, right? Pride in work, whatever words you choose. And whenever you have a conversation with guys, say that pride at work, right? There it is, right there, perfect. It's belonging, right? This company wants people like me because when I behave like that, it feels like that's fulfilling the mission, the purpose, whatever words you are of the company. It's just hugely, it's motivational, right? And it's inside your head, motivational, not the Walmart example at all, right? And that Walmart thing, it's like the company says one thing, we do something else. And it's just undermining trust and respect and all the rest of it. What you state that you're here for isn't what we actually do. So there's a disconnect. And then anything else that comes out corporately or from the boss, that's just optional, right? We didn't do the last thing. And it feels underhand and not right because we're not pulling together anymore. They're on a different planet, those guys, bunch of idiots. People just come here because it's cheap groceries. What do you mean? Help you out, right? I mean, that's a Waitrose thing. That's a Marks and Spencer thing, right? That's not us.
A lot of what you're saying reminds me of the ethos and the philosophy from the Carrot Principle, which is a kind of an older book now, and it was, I don't know, 240,000 people were put through a study about how satisfied they were at work and all of that sort of stuff, and they measured the effectiveness of financial performance markers for organisations, and they just found that if there was a formal recognition process in the organisation, the financial success markers was something like 200% higher than the average garden variety business. Just doing what you're saying, just thanking people, recognising people's efforts, giving appropriate rewards, like somebody like that guy you mentioned, has found that there's an error and fixes the error, and the fix of that error saved the company $10,000. Shouldn't you spend $2,000 to send him and his family away for a weekend to say, mate, that was brilliant. Like, thank you so much for doing that. that you saved our ass. We really appreciate you. You know, it's just so important to have that culture of recognition, and I guess just a thank you culture, like you said, like recognition
Yeah.
and saying thanks, and not having that. Well, that's what they're paid to do. I pay them to do that, and leave it at that. It's like, yeah, but there's this cartoon in the book, and it's the old typing pool, you know, where all of the ladies were out in front of all of the typewriters in some corporate organisation, and the big fat boss comes out in his three-piece suit smoking a big cigar, and he goes, I just want to thank everybody for everything that you do, no matter who you are, you know, like really personal. Didn't mention anybody by name, and one of the things that they talk about in the book is when I'm thanking you, you know, I'll say, you know, Andy, the way that you dealt with Mrs. Jones's specific issue is exactly the sort of thing that is contributing to our team. Well done, thank you very much. But I'm recognising you for that specific thing. It's just not, mate, great job today.
I think you're spot on, right? That if you come in with a generic thank you very much, it's folk like, okay, I came in at 8 o'clock this morning, I finished at 5 o'clock. I don't know what behaviors to repeat now, right? What I don't get that. So I actually teach, which is a horrible word to say, my apologies. I help organizations understand how to tell stories, but it starts with how to listen to stories and understand what's going on, right? Like we described earlier on. But I'll give you an example, and this is social well-being, right? Social well-being. When when you think about fitting in or belonging, right? It's very uncomfortable when you're in a company wanting to, do something more or differently or be seen or whatever it is, but you feel like you have to be careful. It's uncomfortable. Belonging is an entirely different feeling in the team.
Yeah.
Now, one of especially in safety, there's an awful lot of people are the problem because we tend to see the mistakes pretty easily. When something goes as planned, it's like, well, it was supposed to, right? And you tend to forget about the hard effort that went in and the pride that people put in their work, right? But you spot the mistake. So when you hear people tell stories, it's like safety. What's going on with that? I say, well, all these employees are so careless and they walk past things and they don't see things, and we keep having to remind them to pay attention, and that doesn't make a difference. And we've given them all this information and put posters up, and they still fall through holes that they've left there. It's okay. So let me go and listen, and I'll go out. And when I was in the Middle East, and let's say that people didn't care as much about safety and well-being out there and leave it at that. But I asked the safety guys to stop going out and finding what people had done wrong and find out people that help make us strong. Who's fixing the problems that we see as a company? And we had people falling through holes all the time, right? To sometimes tragic outcomes. And I got a story of Mr. Salim who found a hole and covered it up. So I shared the story. I said, Mr. Salim found a hole, covered it up. Thank you very much. That's exactly the behavior we want here. Here's our core values. And because you've got, dignity and respect and professionalism in your job description. Love that. Thank you very much. And I got the CEO to share that story. I only had one, but I said, amongst all of the great stories I have, I want to tell you about Mr. Salim. And when the social worker group read that story, they're like, hang on a minute. We always get blamed for not covering up the holes. And if one of our colleagues falls in because we're all too scared to point the problem out, when one of our colleagues fall in, one of us gets fired. So, we're in a no-win situation here. So we just walk by because we're terrified of you. But that story Mr. Salim was the hero for two reasons. One, all of his social group were saying, mate, don't tell him about anything, right? Just turn a blind eye. It's not you, it's not me, it's somebody else, right? We'll just hide and not get it in the neck. And he's also the hero because he defeated the corporate dragon that's going to come down and say, you did what? That hole was uncovered. There's a 3 meter drop there, right? Who did this? Why did it happen? So Salim becomes the hero of the story because he broke the social norm. He broke the cultural rules. He fixed the problem that we all have. And somebody said, thank you. So then I've got the early adopters that say, well, hang on a minute. If I fix that problem, will the CEO put out a story about how I helped? Yeah. And then I had 10 stories. Mm-hmm. And then I put those 10 stories out. A few more early adopters said, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. It might just be worth it. And then they fixed some problems and we said, thank you very much. And then I had 50 stories. And then I had 75. And then I had 300, right? And I could no longer publish them all. But when you get that volume of, hang on a minute, if I tell you that I fixed the problem and did something well, then it all goes better. And that led to 25% profit. And an organization that was having 5 to 15 fatal accidents a year and suicides, right? I didn't focus on suicide prevention or mental health or anything like that. I focused on, do you see the value that people bring? Do you see that people are a solution to the problems that you have? And how can you as a powerful person say, thank you very much. Is there anything else you need? Because I'm willing to invest in your time, trouble, and effort to help me fix the problems. Because I've been sitting in the corporate office sending memos about you being an idiot. Turns out I'm the idiot. Now I'm part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. How are we going to do this together? Right? So public recognition for being one of us and contributing exactly how, we've designed this to be, exactly in line with the purpose of, delivering a great experience to the client, exactly how the core values of behavior or whatever those words are that you choose, then you create that sense of belonging, which is such a powerful intrinsic motivation, because belonging means safe. Belonging means I've got a job. Belonging means I can put food on the table, and recognition means I can go home to my kids and tell, hey, your dad's a hero. Guess what I did today? And I got a pat in the back. So we're good. Right? I would say rewards can be a little bit tricky.
Yep.
Because if somebody says, if I put this idea in, I might get a free dinner or $20. And when you tell the idea to the group, the other people in the group go, damn, your idea is better than mine. I'll wait till next month. Right? Or, right, it's like, hang on a minute, this idea that I did this month was better than last month. Last month I got a dinner, this month I'm getting nothing. Right? No. So you got to be careful of the if this, then that kind of thing, because that's how the bankers created the financial crash, right? Oh, I get a bigger bonus if I pretend to have sold something that I haven't. So, but that's social recognition. We're still Stone Age programming 1.0, right? Nobody gave us an upgrade. It didn't happen. So we still operate on trust, respect, and dignity and things like that, because those things mean that I belong to the tribe. And if I belong to the tribe, I can survive and thrive, right? If I get rejected by the tribe, I can't survive by myself. So I'm stuffed, right? So purpose, belonging, such a powerful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I concur. I love what you're talking about. I could talk about this all day. We don't have all day, at least. It's dark outside where I am, and the sun's only just come up where you are.
No, it is. Looks like it's going to be a lovely day.
Well, half your luck. I just want to give you a tip of the hat and thank you so much for getting up early and sharing your wisdom. And you are obviously not only knowledgeable, but very passionate about this topic, which is always a massive, massive bonus. You're not just a talking head spouting out something that you've learnt from a book and repeating it. It means something to you. You've definitely got the passion for it, which makes a big difference when you're communicating the ideas, because it's believable. So I just wanted to give you that tip of the hat. It's great to see. Really appreciate you being on the show and sharing some of those wisdom bombs with us.
Oh, a joy and a pleasure. I love talking about this stuff, so I take all opportunities
Yeah,
presented. But yeah, thanks for what you do as well, right?
yeah,
Being in the service of others is a good thing. Thank you, sir.
absolutely. Thank you very much.